Hello and welcome to MCC TV International Show. My name is Dabeet. I'm the Business Department Coordinator here, and also I'm the co-host for this show. Loureen?
Hello and welcome. My name is Loureen Sayej. I'm from Ramallah, Palestine as an international student. And as we know, Ramallah is one of the Muscatine sister cities. And speaking of sister cities program, we have actually two guests for today's show. We're starting with Mary Kane, Sister City International President and CEO, and Dan Clark, Muscatine Sister City Board member. How are you?
Happy to be here.
Welcome to the show.
How about you start with introducing yourselves, what you do and stuff?
Okay. My name is Mary Kane. I'm President and CEO of Sister Cities International. And Sister Cities International is an organization that was started by President Dwight Eisenhower in 1956. It was started on the steps of the American Red Cross on September 11th, 1956. And we consist of about 600 cities in the United States who are our members, who have 2,000 relationships around the world in 136 countries.
Dan, how about you? Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Well, as you said, I'm a member of the board of Muscatine Sister Cities Association. I have been a member of the board off and on almost to the beginning in 1986, and of those many relationships around the world Mary described, 8 of them, active ones, currently belong to Muscatine, and we had a 9th at one time.
And I usually like to call you as one of the founders for Muscatine Sister City Association, and I want to really remind people with our mission here to offer people of Muscatine and of similar cities in other nations opportunities to get acquainted, to understand one another as individuals, as members of their community, as citizens of their country, and as part of the family of nations. What a vision. Tell us more about that, Dan, please.
Well, I might be called a founder, but I was not one of the original board members in 1986. It was my good fortune as an employee of the Stanley Foundation here in Muscatine. The Stanley Foundation, you know, works in international affairs, and I was on staff there and was almost assigned to work with these local people who had this vision you speak of. So the real founders, that original board of directors, were people mostly not alive today. It was 27 years ago.
27 years ago.
So I started out in really sort of a staff capacity, taking some notes and making some phone calls, working with people like Del White, who was the Chamber of Commerce executive, who said, we've just got to do this. Some members of the World Federalist Association. I don't know if anybody's heard of that anymore, but that was an organization that Max Stanley, my boss, had been the national president of at one time. And he had moved on to thinking that there were other ways to make the world a better place than trying to organize that post-World War II vision of what some people call world government. It never was, but world governments, support for the governance and support for the United Nations and so on. And so when some of Max Stanley's friends had this idea, well, we could at least connect with some cities like ours around the world and meet those people and exchange with them, I got to go to their meetings as part of my job.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. And you know, as part of the show today, we are saying is Muscatine Sister City Association telling the story. And we have you here, Dan, to tell the story of Muscatine Sister City, but also we are very blessed to have Mary with us here today. So Mary, can you tell us a little bit more about Sister City International and the support that they give to local chapters of Sister City, please?
Well, the local chapters, the cities, they range from cities that have a population of 35 people to a couple million people. So we have Gilbert, Arkansas, up to New York City and Chicago being our members. And what we do is to help them when they are connecting, finding cities across the world, but also to help them with different programs and outreach. And Sister Cities International is not only cities, but it's also counties and states. And it started after World War II so that we could look at the relationships that we had with the Germans and the Japanese. And President Eisenhower, in his wisdom, knew that we could not get over the animosity after that war until we started meeting people face to face. So a lot of our oldest relationships are with Germany and Japan. Those relationships have evolved over time to not only be for citizen diplomacy exchanges, but they are now student exchanges, they're cultural exchanges, and a lot of them have benefited from economic development and business exchanges.
And as a matter of fact, when you start talking about, student exchanges and so on, my co-host, as a matter of fact, Loureen, is an example of that. We when we had the Ramallah sister city relationship, as a result of that, now we have the student from our sister city Ramallah here on the show, and it's always glad to have her with me as a co-host. Loureen, do you have any question for them?
Yeah, well, I just want to say the idea for people from all over the world to meet together to exchange culture and ideas is a really good thing for us to know more about people from the other side. And all the stereotypes we have and stuff, like, it's really good program for people to know each other. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all what you've done.
Well, thank you very much, and it works.
It works, yes.
It does work. We don't have too many ill feelings with our friends in Japan and Germany anymore. We actually buy an awful lot of cars from them. So it does. These relationships evolve over time, and you get to know people that people are basically the same.
They're the same.
They love their families, they love their children, they want to make sure their children get the best education, get the best thing that the world could offer, and they love their countries.
I have a question. What were some of the obstacles that you faced and that you still face nowadays with the International Sister City?
Well, right now, as we look at the history, we did this with Japan and Germany. Now we want to look at other post-conflict areas, and we are reaching out more to the Middle East. We don't have enough relationships in Latin America. We need more relationships there. And we need to establish more relationships in the continent of Africa. And right now, we're looking at developing trilateral relationships in Africa between U.S. cities that have sister cities in Africa and China.
Good, great. Dan, back to you and our producer, Bishop, Chad Bishop. He has some pictures that he will start rolling soon on the screen. And as we start seeing the pictures, we want you really to tell the Muscatine Sister City stories through even the pictures that we see on the screens, if you don't mind, please.
Happy to do it. Shall I just comment on what I see on the screen?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
That simply is part of the images from our newest brochure, and you see across the bottom the flags of all of our current sister cities. It's maybe a little hard to read there, but the countries are listed in alphabetical order, the countries where we currently have sister cities.
And Mary, feel free also to say something if you decide to say anything about any of our sister cities, or if you visited any of them, please participate.
So if Chad's just going to roll these chronologically, I think that's the idea. We do have Latin American. Actually, at one time, we've had as many as 3 sister cities in Latin America. Only one of them is really, we consider current today. Paraná in Argentina was our very first, 1989. Some of the founders, I'll back up just a second to say that, speaking of forming friendly relationships with post-war or post-hostility enemies, some of the people in 1986 were saying we should have a sister city in the Soviet Union, we should have a sister city in East Germany, we should have a sister city in Cuba, something of that sort, a country that was perceived to be our enemy at that time. And with Gorbachev just coming to the Soviet Union, the idea was that this might be a great opportunity for us.
And that discussion was here in Muscatine, Iowa.
Yes.
In 1986.
That was part of that original vision.
That's great.
Now, how these things form is so often around individuals who already have a relationship. So we had a longtime elementary school teacher, Coca Page, who had her family in Argentina. And so that's where our first sister city came from, Paraná and Crespo. Crespo, her hometown, was our first sister city.
Okay.
That's great.
Wow.
So there we go to Kislovodsk, Russia, 1989. This is the relationship I've been most actively involved in. I first visited the Soviet Union in 1984, and by the thinking it was a chance of a lifetime trip. And by the time I had such good friends that I couldn't stop going back, I've been in that country, whatever name it goes by, now 8 times. And just to mention back to the sister states, Iowa has a sister state relationship with the Stavropol region of Russia, which was Mikhail Gorbachev's home region. And on that basis, Sarah Landy and Joni Axel of Muscatine, who were working at the state level, saw to it that Muscatine got the very first sister city in then Soviet Union. And as some people in the State Department said, Greg Goroff at the U.S. Information Agency said, "You're the first sister city in the first sister state, and you got the very best." And we've always thought so.
That's great to know.
This is a city in Japan. Number 3 has actually changed its name along the way as it's had some reorganization of the municipality. Originally in 1990, our sister city was called Ichikawa Daimoncho, and now today it's Ichikawa Misato. I haven't been there myself. I hope I pronounced it correctly. We've received many visitors from Japan and had exchanges with hospitals, schools at many levels.
And we do have, as a matter of fact, a lot of gifts that we receive from our sister city in Japan that are displayed at the city hall, as a matter of fact.
Gift giving is a huge part of this, and it's really more than ceremonial. And in some of the cultures where we get acquainted, we find we can learn from them about the significance of gift giving, and we could add making toasts, making formal speeches. It's not just formality, it's a way of forming friendship and getting acquainted.
You're definitely right.
I saw Chad slipped in on the screen a picture from 1992. That is a parade here in Muscatine, our 4th of July parade. And I'm the guy all the way over at the left side. I was actually wearing a Russian fur hat, which was kind of a silly thing to do on the 4th of July. But we had just changed our banner. Our original banner for Muscatine Kislovodsk had the red flag with the hammer and sickle of the Soviet Union. And in 1992, we had just changed to put the new flag of the Russian Federation. And the very large man, it's hard to make it out in the picture, but in the light suit is John Kegg, who was the mayor of Muscatine at the time. And the large man in the dark suit is Vasily Kuzmichtov-Khan, the mayor of Kislovodsk at that time, and his interpreter, Yuri Shaksavarov, is walking beside him. In 1994 came Lomsha, Poland. This is a city I have not visited. We've had some nice exchanges, though, and I think perhaps the most recent one, John, maybe you can tell me, was it with our symphony orchestras?
Yes, yes. We had, they visited us, as a matter of fact, and we have some of our orchestra people also visited them, and they played, at each city, and it was unbelievable. I mean, the feedback that we got is really, it was unbelievable feedback from both sides.
I might mention personal relationships as inaugurating these relations. This Poland sister city comes about because of a man a Polish man who came to Muscatine after World War II. He's no longer living, Marian Novich. And Marian came to the Sister Cities Association after he saw what we were doing with Argentina and Russia and maybe Japan, and he said, "How do you do this?" After he watched our operations a little bit, he saw Coca Page and the family in Argentina going back and forth, and he said, "Oh, sister literally means it should be your sister." Well, I have almost sister in Poland, so could we do it? And the board at that point had to make some policy and say, well, how do you start a sister city relationship? And we decided the main rule, and I think this continues today, is that some core group of people in the community have to care about relationships on a personal level and carry them on and really do what it takes to organize and raise the money and everything.
Yes.
Drohobych in the Ukraine, again, family relationships. Walter Conlon, local attorney, former legislator, had family in Ukraine, and so it's been another case of cousins going back and forth, and of course that leads to city government, higher education, and very active relation. I don't know how many times Walter has been back to
Many
Rehoboth.
times. I myself visited Rehoboth twice because we had, as a result of this sister city program, we ended up having a program with the university there in Rehoboth. And as I myself visited the university and got to teach at the university twice. And I know several other people here at MCC and district-wide even, they went and visited Rehoboth too. And it started as a sister city relationship, and then we improved that into like education, as you said, Mary. You know, you start with one area, then you see like things goes too many ways after that, and that's the beauty about, you know, having those relationships.
It's really about the personal relationships.
Exactly.
You know, as we tried to, you were saying, let's choose a few pictures to represent these cities. What I quickly discovered was our pictures are about personal relationships. How do we begin to tell those stories?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we pick one generic picture that's kind of beautiful scenery each place. It feels like home. Again, we have a picture of some people on the screen. I could not find a picture of the original board of directors. This actually is a board that posed 10 years in. After we started in 1986, this was the board of directors in 1996. And I want to call particular attention to, several people have taken turns being president along the way. I believe Cindy Holst, sitting front and center, was president at that time. But standing all the way in the back, on the left in the dark shirt, you see Mike Steinmaus, who was president at the time that Sister Cities International recognized us as the best overall program among cities with population 50,000 and less, our city and our partners around the world. So Mike was president and received that honor. And standing beside him, who would believe it, that the taller guy in the glasses is Jeff Armstrong, who was the president of the community college and the dean at that time.
Yeah.
And he was also president of Sister Cities Association in his turn. Finally, I want to mention, I could talk about each of these people, but I want to mention the lady in blue, lower left, is Catherine Miller. She was the first person we recognized as a lifetime member of the organization. I spoke about the United World Federalists after World War II. Catherine was a foreign language teacher in Muscatine. She taught Spanish and French at this college. And in 1952, she received a Ford Foundation award that let her spend an entire school year traveling in every country in Latin America. In the years following, she traveled in other countries. She made a point of visiting world fairs. She was teaching French. She went to France any number of times. She went to the Soviet Union early. She was always going places that were considered dangerous. And so for many of the people who've been doing these things, John, they point back to Miss Miller, as she was known, who inspired them. Inspired them or even ordered them. You must do this with your life.
You must, yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I remember that. And then you are wondering why I spoke to you to represent Muscatine Sister City and talk about the history of Muscatine Sister City. That's the reason, because you really know every small piece and big piece about this organization. You know the people, you still remember their names, you still remember details about each one of those sister cities. So I'm really, really glad that you and our special guest, Mary here, that you are on the show today and well sharing that with our audience too.
Well, let's hurry on with our chronology so we can get back to why Mary's here, because this is a really big deal now. All the way from the beginning, we were talking about having a sister city in Germany. And of course, at that time, it was the so-called German Democratic Republic, East Germany. We looked at a number of possibilities there. Communications were very difficult.
I bet.
Yeah, I mean, one of the pictures I didn't bring is of a basement office at Stanley Consultants where we used to send telexes to the Soviet Union. You would schedule these telexes. Sometimes they would go through, sometimes they wouldn't. Then it got to faxes, and oh, what a struggle that was. But here, finally, we got a sister city in the former East Germany in 2004, Ludwigslust. And I was going to say, much of the population of Muscatine today is descended from German immigrants. So there was always a group that was saying, we've got to have a relationship in Germany. And as it turns out, one of our most active board members now, Ingrid, Ingrid Rowe grew up very near Ludwigslust. I thought it would be important to put in a picture of Mayor Dick O'Brien because we've had wonderful support from city government, from mayors going all the way back, but in particular, Dick O'Brien, who served so long, has just been our champion.
Yes.
For most of the years.
Yes.
John, I think you should tell us what this is.
Oh, wow.
I think Loureen maybe needs to say something.
Oh, yeah, that's Ramallah, where I come from. And that's a really pretty picture.
This is, as a matter of fact, a picture of, if you see behind the park, that big building, that's the city hall in Ramallah. That's mainly, and this is a park in front of the city hall. Traditionally, summertime, you know, this park will be packed with people. You know, it's like they go, they have dinner there, they socialize with people, they see people. Ramallah has many parks. As a matter of fact, one of the parks that they have is called the Garden of Nations, and Ramallah has over 40 sister cities all over the world. But Muscatine is the first sister city in the United States, by the way, with Ramallah. So they are very excited about that, and they are asking us to now dedicate a place in that Garden of Nations for Muscatine, Iowa, United States, in that park. So
now, at one time there was a rule that it was only one per country. Mary, has that rule changed?
Oh, yes. We couldn't possibly
we
stick to that rule over time.
We got into it with Kislovodsk when some people there wanted to have their relationship with Paterson, New Jersey. And I know that I think ahead of the rule, we finally agreed to have a détente about that.
Yeah, it's very good to get agreements between all of the mayors, but it's handled a little bit differently now.
this is, as a matter of fact, the pictures in Ramallah, Palestine, when we signed the agreement, and the agreement between Muscatine and Ramallah was final. Unfortunately, at that point, we couldn't have the mayor of Ramallah here in Muscatine, so we did the signing celebration here in Muscatine, and Mayor O'Brien, Dick O'Brien, signed the agreement, and I went to Ramallah back, and I took that agreement there, and this is the mayor of Ramallah then in 2011, Ms. Janet Mikhail, and she signed the agreement, and then we exchanged the final document.
And how many years before did you start working? 10 years at least, I think.
It almost took us 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, to finalize this agreement. Yeah. So
I'm glad it's here.
And what brings Mary to town?
Well, I will tell you that Muscatine has been a focus in world news since last year, when when he was then Vice President Xi came to visit Muscatine, and his host family and all the people that he met here during his government exchange back in 1985, I believe. I think it was a wake-up call to the rest of the world about how these exchanges really do work. I mean, it is important. It's important for us to learn about these different areas. It's important for us to meet people and invite them into our communities, because they're life-changing trips for, obviously, President Xi.
And I can say I actually met him in 1985 because part of my job at the Stanley Foundation was working with Joni Axel and Sarah Landy, same players. Here on the screen we have a picture of Xi Jinping, and that's our mayor, Dwayne Hopkins, greeting a Chinese artist who painted that wonderful picture. In the background of the picture, if you can see it, is a fainter image of Xi as a young man greeting the acting mayor of Muscatine at that time. Yes, I helped in a small way to staff that project, and we all went out on the Kent feed boat, which is long gone, but we had a wonderful cruise of the Mississippi River with this delegation from China, from our sister state, Hebei. This is a picture, really a bad picture I took with my iPhone last night, and I know there are wonderful pictures out there. In fact, I believe there's a video that'll be playing on public access television. But I just snapped this last night as our current Sister Cities president, Deb Hutton, there in black, was introducing Mary Kane and her interpreter there. at the beginning of this wonderful ceremony we experienced at Muscatine Arts Center of a signing of a sister city agreement between the two mayors.
Oh, yeah. That's all the international students.
Here at the college?
And this picture reflects a lot of what we're doing these days.
Exactly, exactly. This is like during the Sister City annual dinner meeting, after the meeting and the dinner. So that's a group of people from board members to international students here at MCC, including our mayor. We decided it would be nice to have a picture with everybody there. So.
I want to point out that on the right-hand side of the screen, Chad, if you could go back for just a second, yes, the tallest person there, the kind of shiny head over there on the right, is Marlon Sheepers, and he was one of the original board members, and like Catherine Miller, unless I'm mistaken, we did honor him and make him a lifetime member of the organization.
Yes.
That I just grabbed from the Sister Cities International website, and actually it introduces the new president and CEO.
And we actually, this is a brand new website that we put up in the past year since I came on board so that we could make it easier for our friends from across the world to access information. And there on the right-hand side, you will see City Search. And you can look up the different cities, but you can, there's also a cities seeking cities. If you're looking for a partnership, you can put your information now in our website. Yeah, it's like Match.com for cities.
Cool.
For cities.
That's right.
This is who this is what I'm looking for.
Yes, yes.
You know, I mean, sharing this history and the pictures with our audience is really unbelievable thing that you guys are doing here, and I think each one of us are doing something so that we can somehow make a change and change things. So I'm hoping that our audience really enjoyed watching, first of all, the pictures that we shared with them, and also the story that both of you decided also to share with them on the show. With that also, I would like still to continue to talk about maybe what's next. I mean, for Sister City International, any kind of maybe future projects that you are working on right now?
Well, one thing I do want to point out is that Sister Cities International, the President of the United States, ever since Dwight Eisenhower, has been the honorary chairperson for Sister Cities. So it is a bipartisan organization that seems that everyone can agree upon. Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree. It's an amazing concept that in Washington, D.C., we recently held an inaugural gala for President Obama, and we had people from all the embassies, we had mayors no matter what party that joined us, and we had a host of senators and congressmen who joined us in this celebration because Sister Cities kind of transcends all those arguments. We're one of those things.
And it should be, and it should be. And I mean, really, I'd like to thank you also for all the work that you do on behalf of all sister cities all over as local chapters too. Because, I mean, anytime I need something, I dial the number, I call, and whoever answers the phone, right. Whenever we have a question, we get an answer. Whenever we need the help from you guys, you really provide us with that help. So many thanks for doing that to all of us. Dan, how about you?
Well, one thing I want to be sure to say before the program ends is that you should join us on Facebook. As time goes on, maybe there will be better ways to do it. We used to have websites, and now you can find almost anything we're doing on Facebook, our activities and especially pictures. You know, I said it was so difficult to choose a few pictures because we have very, very many. From all of our activities, our members are posting all the time, tagging themselves, tagging each other, and just search Muscatine Sister Cities and you'll find us. And actually, after looking for a few good pictures for this show, I'm thinking, John, we all need to get to work. Go into our archives, scan those old prints, and get them out there.
Exactly. I agree with you.
You have to tell the story. The history of these relationships literally tells the story of the United States over the past 50-some-odd years.
Since World War II, really.
Yeah. Loureen, what do you have? Do you have any final words?
No. As a student, I just want to thank you for all what you've done. It really, opens a lot of doors for me for my future and stuff. And with that,
Okay.
we end it.
Okay, well, as usual, I will say if you have any question and or comment, please call me at 288-6064, or you can email me at jdabeet@eicc.edu. Till next time, Muscatine, bye-bye.